And a TGIF to all. Welcome into the First Call Podcast. He's Jeff Siegel. I'm Jeremy Plonk, representing First Bet and Express Bet. Maryland Million this weekend at Laurel Park. It's West Virginia Breeders' Classics at Charlestown and week 2 of the Keeneland meet. Jeff, but it's really kind of Breeders' Cup build-up right now as we've got a couple weeks to the World Championships, and we're going to get a chance to talk about some big horses running this weekend and maybe some horses that are farther down the road this week.
Yeah, we got to take a look at a couple of colts at Santa Anita that worked yesterday. And two horses that we will watch are coming off layoffs, and both would be Breeders' Cup type horses. But the good news is I think we'll see them next year, and that's good because they were fantastic prospects this year. As we look at Eagles Flight, you know him. He's the half-brother to Flightline, who had his only start at Santa Anita earlier this year. One like maybe a horse or colt that could be as good as Flightline. I know it's high praise with a maiden win, but the way he did it, Jeremy, was incredible. And then he came up with a problem, but he's back training. This was his first work back for John Sadler. And I got to say, he moves beautifully. This is not a recorded, well, maybe it was recorded, 23-1, just a quarter mile breeze to start it off. But man, that was good.
He's a horse who's got a bright future, but like Flightline, he's got blips on the radar in terms of, getting to the races. We'll see if we can get him back maybe for the Malibu on December 26th. What a possibility that could be, because a horse who could be ready for the Malibu as well. Also on the comeback trail, the 3-year-old Nisos on the workout tab yesterday for Bob Baffert. Let's see how he looked in company, Jeff, working outside here of Hallow.
Yeah, he's I still think he's the best 3-year-old in the country, but the best ability is availability, and he hasn't run for months. He won his 3 starts by a total of 10.5 lengths, 8 3/4 lengths, and 7.5. The colt on the outside just breezing along. So obviously, if he makes it back, and he breezed well, and he's been galloping really well. I think whatever he had, I don't know what he had that caused the layoff, but whatever it is, I think it's been fixed. Maybe time heals all wounds, and they didn't want to do too much with him there. But he's also appear to be on a timeline that would bring him back probably sometime around the Malibu. So we could have a collision course with two of the best colts that I saw all year. I hope they both make it back. That would make one heck of an opening day at Santa Anita, December 26th, if they do.
Yeah, in the imaginary derby, they're two of the favorites, right? I mean, they're two horses that people would love to see, but we just haven't seen much of them in 2024. There was a point where Nisos was more highly regarded than Muth in the Baffert barn at the beginning of the year. And, Muth had a solid season, and we will see if Nisos can ever get back to that promise that he showed. And will Eagles Flight ever take flight anywhere near what we saw with his big brother Flightline? But two very interesting horses on the workout tabs. First work back, generally speaking, when a horse comes off a layoff, it's 6-7 workouts for most trainers before they get to a race. So you're still a ways away. They're going to work once a week. So you're at least 6-7 weeks away from a race for those horses. And there's really probably not a spot where they would go other than, I would think, the Malibu if they're going to come back and run anything. I don't think they will get an allowance race to go for Eagles Flight. So I think your next spot probably be in the stakes, and that would make the most sense coming up in December.
Yeah, I mean, don't forget we have a gap of no racing from this mid-December on. We got Los Al that really doesn't count. So, and when you have colts like this, Sadler obviously with Eagles Flight, and then of course Baffert with Nisos, you're not going to run a horse short. You're not going to say, let's give him a run if he should. No, no. These are colts you want to remain undefeated. And if you're going to lose, at least do it in the grade 1. So, again, I just hope there are no blips on the work tab, on the work pattern for either one of those colts. Again, we could use some help in the older division. These colts will be 4 next year. So we'll be watching them. And then if they do anything significant, we'll obviously have the video out here at Santa Anita.
And a big money race at the end of January, the Pegasus World Cup. For horses like this, that kind of maybe the 3-year-old season didn't work out for, if they keep them in training into 4, even before maybe going to the breeding shed later in the year, you still have a chance maybe to run the Pegasus World Cup. So we'll see. That's a lot of conjecture. But what we do know this weekend is we've got 8 stakes for you to handicap here on the podcast. For those of you watching on YouTube and on X, be sure to like, share this out, put comments in the comment section, and get us audience build up for for us here on the First Call podcast. For those of you listening on our traditional audio podcast channels, here are the 8 races Jeff and I are going to handicap. We'll go to Laurel Park on Saturday for Maryland Million Day. We're going to handicap 4 races on the card, starting early in the day, the Nursery. Then we'll follow with the Lassie, the Distaff, and the Maryland Million Classic, the main event. From Belmont at the Big A, 2 stakes races on the Naira circuit on Saturday, the Sands Point and the Floral Park. We'll handicap those. At Keeneland, the weekend's only Grade 1 in the U.S., the Queen Elizabeth II Challenge Cup for 3-year-old fillies. And to Santa Anita, we'll go for the State Breds in the California Distaff Handicap. I want to remind you, we've got a $7,500 exactathon promotion coming up at Laurel Park for Maryland Million Day on Saturday with First Bet and Express Bet. Play exactas on the Maryland Million 12-race card. If you hit 6 or more $2 exactas during the course of the card, you get multiple shots in a race, but a $2 minimum. If you can collect 6 exactas on the 12 races, you'll split $5,000 in cash into your bank or into your wagering account. Then you can move it to your bank account. The Maryland Million Day exactathon also has a $2,500 bonus to the player on either platform who hits the most exactas on the card. So $7,500 in all up for grabs in the Maryland Million exactathon. Couple Maryland Million notes for you. Early post time, 11:30 a.m. Eastern at Laurel Park, so be sure to check in for that. And this is the 39th edition of the Jim McKay Maryland Million. Of course, Jim McKay helped start the Maryland Million back in 1986. I still remember watching the very first edition. Maryland Million Classic that day, won by John Franks Herat. Jack Van Berg brought that one in. Jerry Bailey aboard to win the first Maryland Million winner. And here we are 39 years later. So Maryland Million number 39, Jeff Siegel, that's where we're going to start our handicapping. Let's go to the first of our races. Race number 2, the Maryland Million Nursery. How do you see it?
Well, number 3, Samy True, won his debut. He did it stylishly. And he earned a good number. In fact, a speed figure, a buyer speed figure that is probably going to be good enough to win this race if he doesn't go backwards or if that first race made him look better than he did. I thought he won kind of cleverly, and lightly raced 2-year-old has every right to step forward. He's got a nice bullet workout since the race. It wasn't fast, but at least he's training, solidly, and has every right to step forward. 5-2 in the morning line. I don't know what price he'll be, but that seems about right. So if he comes back and just builds on that nice, visually pleasing maiden win, there's no reason why he can't step up and win right back.
Samy True, sired by Golden Lad, who sired last year's winner of the Maryland Million Nursery, will look for back-to-back, and this horse will look for back-to-back wins as well.
With 2.5 furlongs left to go. It's Samy True just holding on to the lead at the top of the stretch. As Stoney is there on the outside. Samy True and Stoney, not much between them. They turn for home together. Amy's Music really got a rally. Seems stuck back there in third with a furlong left to go. Samy True down to the inside is digging down and kicking away to a 2-length lead on Stoney and Amy's Music as they're close to home. Samy True, pop the latches on top. We'll take it with Toledo.
Dave Rodman there on the call, a little under the weather back in September. Hopefully Dave's feeling better for Maryland Million Day coming up. Let's go to the 6th race on the card at Laurel on Saturday. The $100,000 Maryland Million Lassie. These are the 2-year-old fillies going 6 furlongs. Full field here with a full field, Jeff. Good betting race. How do you see it shaking out?
Again, similar situation here where you've got a bunch of 2-year-old fillies that have only had one start or a couple and are what they are. But Divine Works, even though she did not win her first start, she's a maiden after one start, and she got beat 9 lengths in that race. She actually earned an okay number for the situation, and it was a pretty decent kind of sort of race at Saratoga.
Right.
Winner came back and actually ran well in the stakes. So Divine Works to me, again, you expect them to build on their first start. She didn't get a great start, and then she stayed on nicely. Now from the outside draw, she gets to theoretically load last and then kind of pick her spot. And again, numbers wise, she's already competitive, and I think she'll step forward. She's listed at 6-1 in the morning line. I'd take that right now if I could get it. I think she'll probably be lesser than that. Again, there's nobody else to latch onto. So I like Divine Works. Michael Trombetta's filly by Divining Rod, number 12, 6-1. I'll see if we can get that price and maybe get her home.
Onyx 10's a filly who's got a little more on the resume, meat on the bone right now. She's run 4 times. Former maiden claimer, but don't be fooled by the maiden claiming tag there. It was the waiver claiming, so you could run Maryland breds and maiden claiming races against open company with no fear of being claimed. And we see some of the good Maryland breds do that locally. Of course, she was a 12-length winner in her second career start at Delaware. A Delaware certified horse, I think, is how they get into the waiver claimer there. Blue Hen Stakes ran a good second. Small Wonder Stakes ran 4th. But these horses that have been running over at Delaware have kind of traded punches a few times, it seems like, with Great Andrel in there as well. So, like you said, the fresh face in here might be the way to go. Divine Works, I agree with you. I wrote a blog up of the 12 races for Maryland Million Day, and so far, 2 for 2. We're in agreement for the first 2 races here on the podcast. Samy True in the Maryland Million Nursery and the 12 in the Lassie. Let's go with Divine Works in there. Skip ahead now to race number 10 on the card at Laurel Park. It's the Maryland Million Distaff, 7 furlong event in this one. Jeff, give us your pick.
I really had a hard time with this one. I kind of moved around trying to find something that I could really embrace. Ended up, again, I figured if I'm going to take a shot, might as well take a shot with a little bit of a decent price. Foxy Jr. Is a filly that I actually think will run well here, even though this is a one-turn race, a 7 furlong race. And on the PPs, you can't find a sprint. She's been basically a miler, most of them 2 turns. But I don't mind having a horse turn back and trip. Sometimes you find that they always wanted to be a one-turn horse, and until you give them a shot, you don't know,
Right.
But she's pretty consistent numbers-wise. Now, her 2-turn numbers are good. I don't expect her to be better, but if she's just as good sprinting as routing, especially at this elongated 7 furlong distance, Foxy Jr. Should be able to be very competitive. Now, I've never really trusted Pennsylvania form, quite frankly. I know you live in the state, so I'm not going to knock your
Is that a call out of me? You don't trust Pennsylvania form?
But between Parks and Penn National, I've never really had a whole lot of luck evaluating that form. You might have a much better feel or handle on that than I do. But she's got tactical speed going long, and maybe she'll be a closer here. And I like the fact that she's won 7 races. That's another thing that I like. She knows where the wire is. So, again, 8-1 in the morning line. Again, with a filly that I don't think has to improve at all if she can duplicate her 2-turn numbers around 1 turn. If she can do that, she can win. Foxy Jr. number 10 for me in the Maryland Million Distaff.
Let's take a look at her win in the Plum Pretty. Jessica Paquette with a call.
Around the far turn, and Nature's Candy has some company. Confirmed Star, she goes first, and she now has the lead, racing for the challenge of her formidable stablemate, Morning Matcha. They go around the far turn. Confirmed Star, Foxy Jr. dives in between on the outside. Pachelbel's getting in gear, 4 across the track. Morning Matcha has to do a bit better. It's Foxy Jr. who has the lead. Morning Matcha now with the final try. Foxy Jr. pulling away on the outside. Pachelbel and Foxy Jr. is going to pull a little bit of an upset here in the Plum Pretty Stakes. Foxy Jr.
Well, Jeff, since you insulted everybody from the state of Pennsylvania, I went different from you in this particular.
By the way, is it called the state or the Commonwealth? Tell me.
It's the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
All right.
Yes,
So.
but one of the 50 states.
Okay.
Malibu Moonshine's where I went here in the Maryland Million Distaff. Now, she was claimed for $25,000 last out. Todd Beatty, Penn National trainer, shrewd barn there, goes to Saratoga and pulls off a claim. And you have to think they knew this race was a race she's eligible for. She's run well at Laurel with 3 wins here in the past. She's trained by Charlie Baker in New York, so I don't think anybody at Saratoga off her form was looking at, okay, let's go dip in for her at 25 because she's not going to be competitive at Saratoga. But with this race lined up, coming up next on the schedule, Malibu Moonshine looks to me like kind of a crafty claim in here, and I think she's a filly who's run really well. Stakes winner over this track at Laurel Park. I think she's got a shot in there, so I went with Malibu Moonshine. We'll hope Todd Beatty's got he had a plan when he went to Saratoga. You don't see Todd Beatty go to Saratoga and claim horses I can't remember ever. So I thought that was rather interesting and maybe with some purpose.
No, I agree. They're both. I mean, she's 8-1 as the filly that I picked. 3 out of 4 at Laurel, 3 out of 4 at 7-8. So, I mean, to me, very solid if she can avoid trouble because she's not a real quick horse. But if she can extract herself from the pack and with that long run in from the top of the stretch to the wire, she should be able to do that. Malibu Moonshine, if I'm playing any kind of rolling exotic ticket, is absolutely on the main ticket for the similar reasons that I like Foxy Jr. You could play them both at 8-1 if you wanted to.
Yeah, good prices there to be had in the distaff. To the Classic we go, Maryland Million Classic, 1 mile and an eighth. That's one lap around the 9 furlong oval there at Laurel Park. The Maryland Million Classic with a $150,000 purse. Last year, this race came to the wire. 2 horses leaning all over each other, bumping and grinding. Ain't the Beer Cold was in that one, of course. Market Maven was in that one. They ended up running 1-2. Market Maven disqualified for interference. Ain't the Beer Cold promoted to the winner of the Maryland Million Classic. Do you see a rematch? Do you see a replay of what we saw last year? You're going to go a different direction this year in the Classic?
I don't see why not. I mean, I ended up picking Market Maven. Again, he finished first in this race last year, got DQ'd. And then he's been kind of everywhere. He's been Penn National, Monmouth, Parks. I think maybe he'd like to come back home a little bit, and I think he is. He's drawn nicely in a race in which the pace looks a little volatile, which is to say it could be fast, but it could be slow too. And I mean, he has enough tactical speed to draft in. I'm pretty confident that he's going to be in a decent spot, and then it's up to him to kind of follow through. But like I say, he ran well in this race last year. His numbers at Parks, his recent numbers, even though he hasn't won this year and he hasn't won recently, are pretty solid. I mean, he's been winning good races and coming out of state parade races. So I to me think Market Maven's got as good a chance as any. And another situation where, again, 6-1 on the morning line, that's the kind of price you would probably want to look at, here. To me, with a kind of race like this, it's open. You don't want to take a short price. So he fits the bill for me, Market Maven.
Those are 2 horses that were in this dance last year. A couple new faces to consider. Mugatu, a horse who was in this year's Preakness Stakes. 3-year-old for Jeff Engler coming from Kentucky. Last time he was at Laurel, they were off the turf in the Bald Eagle Derby and ran a good second over this track. So back at the same course and distance. Mugatu, the 3-year-old taking on Elders, gets a little bit of a weight break, but only 3 pounds in there. Sheldon Russell will ride Mugatu. And I thought Mosler Time was interesting in here for trainer Cal Lynch. If you look at the form of this horse, he's never been in a stakes, but he's only had 2 races around 2 turns in his career. Both of those dominant victories, one at Pimlico, one at Laurel last time in commanding fashion by almost 7 lengths. He's got Curlin on the damn side of the pedigree. Of course, he's by the Maryland stallion Mosler. I think he's got a chance in here. I wouldn't want to take too short of a price, though, and I'm a little fearful that 89 buyer and big win margin last time might get overbet. So you got to be a little price sensitive in here, but I want somewhere around 4-1 on Mosler Time to step up in the stakes ranks. At least 4-1 in this particular spot, but I give him a shot in here.
Well, I think one thing about him is he got a big number last time out, Jeremy, but he's had big numbers before. So it's not like you expect him. It was like a one-off. I mean, he can run fast. And again, another horse who likes to lay close up. He might be in, I don't know if he'll be in front, but he'll be in the first flight.
He will. Yeah.
That puts him right there. Again, you're looking at middle price horses in a race like that, 5-1. That's fine. I mean, he's certainly worth that.
For more on the Maryland Million, be sure to check out all the Maryland racing coverage. Callie Francois, Brian Natto is up from Gulfstream Park to help over the weekend. So you can get more coverage of the Maryland Million Day card through those folks and their various social media channels. Maryland Racing on YouTube will have a lot of content as well. So be sure to check that out. And one more reminder, our $7,500 exactathon hits 6 exactas in the 12 races, $2 minimums on those exactas to play in the contest. Be sure to register. First Bet and Express Bet, the $7,500 exactathon. You can win your share of $7,500 if you take down 6 exactas in those 12 races. All right, let's move on from Maryland as we turn the page to Belmont at the Big A on Saturday. Probably not any Breeders' Cup implications in here as we're getting a little bit close, but there are some Breeders' Cup nominated runners in the Sands Point. Grade 2, 3-year-old fillies. Maybe somebody here wants to step up and try the filly and mare turf or the mile. We shall see. Floral Park for the filly and mare sprint set. Let's start off in that 5th race, Jeff, the Sands Point. They go 1 mile and an eighth on the grass, and turf conditions should be great there. And Laurel, forgot to give the weather at both tracks, but sunny in the 70s at both places this weekend. Should be great racing in Maryland and good in New York as well. So who do you like here in the Sands Point?
Well, I was looking at the conditions of this race. 1 mile and an eighth on turf, 3-year-old fillies, grade 2. It's written for 3-year-old fillies whose connections don't think they're good enough to run in the QE2 at Keeneland.
That was in the fine print.
That was, right? The fine print there. But something Spaladay would have been competitive, I think. I mean, if you look at her last race, she was fourth beaten just over a length. She was 11-1, so she hadn't done enough going into the race to get a lot of support. But she feels pretty was second in this race, and that she's one of the favorites in the QE2. So, and I love this pattern. I mean, you don't see it that often with a filly who's run already 6 times. But here are her Beyer numbers, starting from her maiden or first start up until her most recent. 69, 71, 79, 83, 85, 88. So she continues to improve. She's never taken a backward move. She came against slow fractions in the Lake Placid at Saratoga. Again, beaten only a length and a half. A tough race. A race that, if repeated here, certainly makes her the one to beat, which is why she's 9-5 on the morning line. Again, not factoring in the likelihood that she's going to produce yet another forward move. She's been freshened since August. Healthy work pattern for Chad Brown. Inside draw for ground saving purposes. And already with proven form over the course, having won a maiden race here back in May. There really isn't any negatives other than the fact that I think Chad's probably thinking, this is still a pretty good grade 2. And maybe I'd like to win this one and then maybe go to Gulfstream or something and try to get fancy with her. But I do think Spallady's got a chance. Daughter of More Than Ready. They gave some money for her, $310,000 as a yearling. The good More Than Readies bring, especially the fillies, they bring money, and this one must be pretty good looking, I would imagine. So for Peter Brand, I like Spallady to win the Sands Point.
She's out a day at the Spa, who's just that really just top-notch front-running turfer. She's got a different style than her mama, of course, coming from off the pace. Spallady in that last race in the Lake Placid, also behind Grayosh, who's a Chad Brown trainee who is going in the QE2 as well. So Chad kind of separating his forces, if you will, here. And maybe he can get black type with this daughter of Day at the Spa. That makes her extremely valuable as a broodmare. She can become a grade 2 winner with the pedigree that she has out of Day at the Spa. So Spallady, Jeff's top pick there in race number 5. Belmont at the Big A on Saturday, that being the Sands Point. To the Floral Park, we go in race number 7. These are affiliate mare turf sprinters, 6 furlongs in the Floral Park. We'll also get turf sprinters in action on Sunday at Keeneland. So this race had some competition, 135,000 here. The Franklin Stakes on Sunday at Keeneland drew Roses from Deborah and some of the other horses we're used to seeing in these New York turf sprint races. Jeff, who do you like in this one going 6 furlongs on the grass?
Interesting race because this is a turf sprint for fillies and mares. It's a sprint with no speed in it. I mean, you look at the race. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I think Risk Threshold will win, because she does have speed, and I don't think anybody's going to go with her. I mean, there's a filly in here. How about them apples, who likes to lay fairly close, but she's not going to the front, because you go back in her last 12 races, she's never been in front in the first call. She might be sitting second, but she's certainly not going to run Risk Threshold into the ground early. And here again is another lightly raced Chad Brown filly who actually has a pedigree that would suggest that maybe she'd be better over a mile, and she's run well on a mile. But most recently, and she's been sparingly raced, but she just, earned a career top number, an 89 Beyer number in an allowance win at this course back in mid-September, and again on the lead, and she's going to be on the lead again. So on 2 for 2 over the course. Philly, who's only 4, but looks like she's got potential to be really, really good. And this is a logical stepping stone from a maiden to an allowance to a stake that comes up pretty easy. I like Risk Threshold, the Irish bred, to continue her winning ways. She is 5-2 on the morning line, and I would hope to get that if we can.
All right, let's give you an exact underneath that. Number 2, Hollywood Walk at 10-1. I think is interesting in here. I think Risk Threshold goes wire to wire, but I like this finisher in here out of the 2. Good post position. Mike Trombetta's turf sprinter is highly underrated in the region. Of course, the work he did with Arzak, who's been a top class turf sprinter. But Hollywood Walk, I think, is interesting in here, coming out of a race at Colonial. This horse ran in the very 1 on the Preakness undercard with a good 3rd place finish. Is running against some top class Philly sprinters, despite that Mid-Atlantic regional feel about her resume. I think Hollywood Walk could be second. Let's go for a 5-2 exacta there in the Floral Park in race number 7. Now to Keeneland we go on Saturday. Next up on the program, we will talk about the Queen Elizabeth II Challenge Cup. Field of 10 entered in this one. We've got fillies from France and Ireland and Canada and the United States. A good international cast for this grade 1 race at 1 1/8 miles on the turf. Again, restricted to just 3-year-old fillies. So Maybe a horse comes out of here every few years and attempts the Breeders' Cup. With the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf this year at a mile and 3/8, it might be a little bit less likely. But Jeff, some American horses in here that are familiar with each other. Of course, we've talked about them already. Grayosh and She Feels Pretty coming out of that 1-2 finish last time out in the Lake Placid. Then you've got the Canadian horse Caitlin Her Greatness, who won the King's Plate last time out, beating the boys. She was runner-up in the Woodbine Oaks in her previous start to that. And the international horses continue with Soprano coming in from Ireland and Kendella from France. This is a really interesting melting pot. I always call Keeneland the 17-day melting pot in fall meet, and this is truly one of those kind of races. Horses from all over.
I'm looking at Soprano here, and I mean, she was third in the matron in the Group 1 race at Leopardstown in a left-handed racetrack. If you watch races at Leopardstown, it's almost like you're watching races at the Belmont Park. I don't know what Belmont Park's going to look like when they reopen it, but it's a left-handed sweeping track with a good run in. It's pretty American,
Mm-hmm.
And she ran third in that race, beaten just over length behind Porta Fortuna, who's arguably the among the top 2 or 3 for sure at worst. Filly's over there right now, who would be a very short price in this race. In fact, she's going to be a major player in the Breeders' Cup. And this race is such a good race for 3-year-old fillies that really don't want to run long. There's no Breeders' Cup races for these kinds of fillies unless they go mile and 3/8. And you look at Soprano; she's basically a miler, and she could run against the Colts in the Breeders' Cup mile, but that would be a tall task for her. So this is the logical place. This is her Breeders' Cup, really a Grade 1 event, a big purse, $750,000, mile and 1/8. She's a miler overseas, but which means that she's most likely going to be able to go a mile and 1/8. And I don't know of any of these fillies, and that includes She Feels Pretty, who's pretty solid. I don't know if they could ever win a race at Royal Ascot in a 30-runner race, but that's what Soprano did. So it's not like her effort in the matron last time out was coming out of nowhere. She's always been a very good filly, but at Royal Ascot, when she finished ahead of 29 runners to win a very legitimate race, that to me, that's good enough to beat this field, I think.
Let's let the folks see this horse in action. Soprano, Jeff talked about the huge field in the Sandringham Stakes back in June at Royal Ascot. They break off in the stretch into 2 packs. There's an inside and an outside group. She's going to emerge from the outside group, a big cluster of 16 or so. So keep your eye on the right-hand side of the screen as we go back to the Sandringham at Royal Ascot.
Advantage strutting on the right in the emerald green to D Flawless, the white face on the left. Then Ragnar being followed through by Satoir. Kitty Rose in the right-hand group has got every chance as they move on down inside the last couple of furlongs. On the right, green and white strutting. Uluru in the green and red is now giving chase. Then Ragnar from Kitty Rose. Soprano, Indelible has moved through over on the far side with a pink cap from Battle Queen. Strutting down the near side. Uluru. Soprano is still finishing off strongly. Indelible doing best on the far side. Soprano beginning to get up. Soprano hits the high notes and wins the...
Finished strong there, made up quite a bit of ground over the last 100 yards or so. So big finish there out of Soprano at a mile. She'll be asked to go a mile and an 1/8 around 2 turns in the QE2. The other international runner in here is the 10 Kendella. That's where I ended up in here. I go at 10-5, taking the 2 international runners. She's a daughter of Frankel, who's been going longer. So she's actually cutting back from a mile and a quarter and a mile and a half and a mile and 5/16. This will be the shortest race she's run since back in April when she was a Group 3 winner in France over a mile. So one of the reasons I went that direction was, one, we know she can go the mile. The other filly's stretching out a little bit. But with Kendella, she's got Florent Giroux riding. I like when international horses come over and take local jockeys. I just kind of, Billy Lefton, the jockey of the of Soprano, will be first time over the course at Keeneland. Give me Giroux's experience, and maybe that's worth a length. And in a turf race, when they're all coming down the stretch, that extra 8 feet might be enough to win a photo. So I went with Kendella, but not any big conviction over Soprano in here. And of the 2 American fillies, She Feels Pretty and Grayosh, they're really hard to separate. But I'll tell you this, Cherie DeVoe's horses are really running well at the meet here at Keeneland. I would not be surprised if She Feels Pretty is in absolute cranked form and runs the best race of her career. And she's run some good ones already. So She Feels Pretty, a threat in here. Grayosh, definitely a threat as well. I think there's 4 legit contenders in here if you're playing the multi-race wagers, Jeff, and I would use all 4 of those.
Good race. I mean, it should be a good race. A grade one,
Yeah.
750. These are fillies that are proven. The filly you like over the other overseas horse, Kendella, the French bred. I mean, her form is very, very strong. She ran in the French Oaks. She was placed in a couple of group races. Time form numbers give a little bit of an edge, though, to the filly that I picked. So, I mean, again, if she's a 9-2, she won't be any less than that. Kendella, you got to use her. Her.
Yeah, you get the miler against the router, and they meet at 1 1/8 on a neutral site. It doesn't get any more neutral than French and Irish fillies coming overseas here to the U.S. So it should be a good one. Can't wait to see it.
Real quick, what's the ground going to be like? And is the course been playing fair? I know you covered that meeting.
Yeah, the course has been fair. Horses have come from off the pace. It's firm. I mean, we haven't had any rain. It's been 70 to 85 degrees on some days. There is no rain in the 7-day forecast for Lexington when I checked last night. It's going to be firm for a while, but they're not just flying over it and speed dominating. Horses have come from well off the pace and run well. So you can finish. It's been very fair on the turf. On the dirt, the speed's been good the first 4 days of the meet. Yesterday, some speed started to come back just a little bit with some closers, but I would say that, you want to be at Keeneland, you want to be into the race for sure on the dirt every time. And on the turf, it plays pretty fair, and I think it should continue that way. No changes to the conditions for sure in terms of the weather. Let's go to California, where we never have to worry about the weather. Well, maybe a little bit in January, it seems like, but rest of the year, you don't have to worry about it. It's the California Distaff Handicap. Santa Anita down the hill on Saturday in the main event, 6.5 furlong sprint here. Who do you like amongst these Calbreds, Jeff?
One of the things that I would prefer, I don't demand it, but I prefer to see a runner who has run down the hill and run well down the hill in the past. And Stay and Scam certainly has. If you look at her record, if you just draw on through all of her races and just zero in on her hillside turf course sprints, 4 starts, 2 wins, a second and a third. Yeah. So she certainly has the athleticism, the versatility to handle any kind of pace scenario. She can go to the front. She's very happy to do that. She can stalk, pounce, and go. And after a bit of freshening, this was a breeze she had over the training track, the all-weather. Most of the trainers who have turf horses breeze over the all-weather. And she was under a nice hold here. And towards the end of the breeze, she's going to be chirped to a little bit. And, boy, she certainly kind of reaches out very nicely here. You can see the jocks hold on her. Relaxed a little bit, but she's eager. And after a couple of months, I really think that she's going to come back and fire a big shot fresh over a course that I know she likes, with numbers that are fast enough, good enough to win. Very strong gallop out here. So it all adds up to me to Stay and Scam racing against fillies I know she's good enough to beat. And I would suggest that I think that she's going to be very tough to beat.
You got horses who are back in this race for the second year in a row. You got the winner last year, Rose Maddox, the third place finisher, Chismosa. So pretty familiar cast, and Jeff's going with Stay and Scam under Umberto Rispoli to get the victory in the California Distaff Handicap. That'll wrap up our 8 races to handicap this weekend. I want to remind you, it's also West Virginia Breeders' Classics night at Charlestown on Saturday night. I've got that as the Express Bet race of the week. The West Virginia Breeders' Classic got a little minor upset brewing in there with a potential even money favorite stretching out in distance. We're going to try to knock it off. So check out at expressbet.com and at news.first.com our write-up for the Express Bet race of the week. And also sign up for the email newsletter, and you'll get that sent to your email inbox each and every week. Also sign up on Substack for my Substack, where you get email alerts on some of my top handicapping plays. Of course, around the Breeders' Cup, that'll be important. Give you a look at the Substack address here if you want to sign up for that. That is this one right here. Use JeremyPlonk.substack.com, and you'll be able to get my Keeneland look-ahead previews each and every day for the racing meet. Today's is already out for the Friday card. Sign up now, and you'll get tomorrow sent to you for QE today. All right, Jeff, that's a wrap. It is a huge weekend. Big Saturday of horse racing. Big Saturday in the Cotton Bowl. Number 1 Texas is about to go down. Boomer Sooner. We hope that we can shock the world tomorrow as 2 touchdown underdogs. I'm looking forward. The Phillies stank it up in the playoffs, so I'm down to rooting for it.
Well, I don't know where I saw it, but I was looking at maybe it was ESPN or something on their news stories. Did you guys lose yet another wide receiver?
Yeah,
Or
we're
is
down
this
five wide. No, we're down 5 wide receivers. All 5.
I saw some wide receiver who I don't know your team that well says he's missing the game. I figured, how can he? You got nobody left.
No,
Well,
no, they're
I hope you can run the
they're
ball.
playing
That's all
with
I can
kids
say.
and defensive backs that have switched to wide receiver. But hopefully, we have a little Sooner magic if we can pull it off on Saturday. Confidence level not high, but optimism through the roof. So we will see how it shakes out on Saturday. Jeff and I will be back on Tuesday for the It's Official podcast, where we'll recap this weekend's racing action and have a strong flavor over the next week or two on Breeders' Cup workers. You're really going to watch our It's Official podcast on Tuesdays over the next couple weeks, as we're going to dive deep into horses working towards the Breeders' Cup and try to give you a sense of who the major players will be for the championships coming up on November 1st and 2nd at Del Mar. So between now and then, have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you on Tuesday.